from a syrup to improve digestion to one of the largest producers of soft drinks on the planet. Pepsi has been trying to claim the top spot in the market for over 100 years, competing with its eternal rival Coca-Cola. Why did PepsiCo's product advertisement lead to Michael Jackson's surgery? How did the company disarm the Soviet Union? And why pour Pepsi into Coca-Cola bottles? Pepsi carbonated water first appeared in the world at the end of 1890. During the period of the wild popularity of so-called soda fountains, soda machines were in almost every American pharmacy, allowing customers to buy medicine and enjoy a refreshing drink.
North Carolina pharmacist Caleb Bradham decided to create a drink that was both tasty and healthy.
The idea arose for a reason. Most medicinal drinks of the time contained various drugs. In fact, Coca-Cola, Pepsi's main competitor, which appeared on the market a decade earlier, contained cocaine until 1903. A safe substance by the standards of that time. Pepsi's formula included cola nut extract, syrup, vanilla, and pepsin, an enzyme to aid digestion.
Bradham combined the words Pepsi and cola. This is how Pepsi-Cola appeared.
The new name of the drink was more successful than the first unpretentious name, Brad's Drink. Another version of the name's origin is from the word dyspepsia, a digestive disorder. According to Bradham, the drink was meant to improve stomach function. Pepsi will use this feature to attract customers many years later.
In 1906, Pepsi successfully complied with the Pure Food and Drug Act, which prohibited adding harmful substances to products. To do this, Pepsi did not have to change the recipe, so it was nicknamed Pure Drink. Bradham believed Pepsi-Cola was so safe for health that even children could drink it. Based on this, they came up with ad. Here it is, a photo of a child drinking Pepsi.
7 years after its registration in 1903, Pepsi-Cola was already sold in 24 American states. But after several years of success, business began to decline. Due to high sugar prices, it was replaced with molasses, a syrup made from beet byproducts. The new taste didn't catch on, and the company went bankrupt. The Great Depression made it even harder to keep the business afloat.
In the 1950s, then Coca-Cola director Alfred Steele, after moving to Pepsi, said, "We need to move Pepsi from the kitchen to the living room." He meant people bought Pepsi-Cola because it was cheaper. They bottled it in Coke bottles, hoping guests wouldn't notice the difference. In short, they passed Pepsi off as Coca-Cola. Things were that bad for the company.
A direct attack on the main competitor, the Coca-Cola Company, was supposed to help raise the rating.
To please customers, in the 1930s, Pepsi introduced a 350 milliliter bottle for a nickel, while their competitors sold half the can for the same price.
The idea worked.
Coca-Cola was so confident that they said, "We don't care about Pepsi and their drink. We will continue to sell our little bottles." So poor people bought Pepsi-Cola and, despite the image of a drink for the lower class, it began to sell quite well. Then Coca-Cola realized that they had a serious competitor.
The venture helped restore the reputation and glory. By the 1940s, Pepsi-Cola was the second most popular drink in the US. It retains this status to this day. July 1959, an exhibition of American products opens at Moscow's Sokolniki Park. The goal is to establish cultural cooperation between the US and the USSR. The huge pavilion exhibits Fords and Cadillacs, IBM computers, color TVs, clothing, and popular American food. The exhibition was visited by more than 3 million people in 6 weeks. Pepsi's then director Donald Kendall and then Vice President Nixon faced a tough challenge.
On the eve of the exhibition, I went to Nixon to the embassy and told him I was in trouble. People thought I was wasting Pepsi money coming to a communist country. I told him he had to make sure Pepsi ended up in Khrushchev's hands.
A cunning plan helped to pull off the idea.
I told Khrushchev I had Pepsi, which we brought from the US, and Pepsi, made in Moscow. and I suggested trying both, expressing confidence that we could make Pepsi here just as good as in the US. Khrushchev tried it and said that Moscow Pepsi Cola was much better, and began to offer it to others.
Moscow's Pepsi Cola was just 3 million glasses and cartons imported from the US. Still, the idea worked, and the photo of Khrushchev with a Pepsi spread across major global headlines. Officially, Pepsi entered the Soviet market 10 years later.
In the 1970s, when Nixon was the president, he helped organize a deal under which Pepsi received exclusive rights in the Soviet Union for a period of 20 years.
And at the same time, they actually blocked access to the main competitor, Coca-Cola. Pepsi became a pioneer and, according to New York Times reporters, the first capitalist product in the USSR. Probable success was hindered by money. The Soviet ruble had no international value and was banned from export. To solve the problem, they came up with an exchange.
He said, "We want to trade with you. Your Pepsi for our vodka, 1 liter for 1. Having a few drinks, I joked, I see why you're not Minister of Trade. 1 liter for 1. We are ready to give 1 liter for 1. Kosygin clarified, I mean your concentrate 1 liter for 1. Then it hit me what he meant.
The barter was as follows. A liter of Stolichnaya vodka in exchange for a liter of Pepsi Cola concentrate.
By the late 1980s, Russians were drinking about 1 billion servings of Pepsi every year.
And that was far more than Americans consumed Russian vodka. The US boycott over the Afghanistan war forced the USSR to create a new payment system. The Soviet Union literally shared what it had on its balance sheet.
In the spring of 1989, Pepsi and the USSR made an incredible deal. The American company acted as an intermediary in acquiring 17 old Soviet submarines and 3 ships, including a frigate, cruiser, and destroyer. Pepsi also bought new oil tankers from Moscow, then rented or sold them.
Instead, they were able to double the number of Pepsi Cola factories in the USSR. The exchange of the Navy for soda for a time made Pepsi the 6th military power in the world. Schendel's phrase to Brent Scowcroft, White House National Security Advisor, became iconic.
We disarmed the Soviet Union faster than you.
In 1990, Pepsi had a $3 billion deal with the Soviet Union, set to be the most expensive agreement of the century between the USSR and the US. But it never happened. After the USSR's collapse, negotiations had to be with 15 states instead of 1. Now Pepsi is a $187 billion company and one of the largest manufacturers of soft drinks and food. Ranked 36th on Forbes' list of most valuable corporations. With over 265,000 employees, 22 brands, and sales in 200 countries.
According to my personal theory, people like to associate sodas with good life events and fond memories. When I was in school, we drank Pepsi during football matches and had a good time. These feelings stay with you throughout your life.
It is the same, but it may take a bit longer, the so-called brand war between Pepsi and its main competitor, Coca-Cola.
I don't think Coca-Cola or Pepsi want to stop this competition. This so-called war is beneficial to both companies, and they both understand this.
Cola's competition with Pepsi began from the founding of the latter. More precisely, from the day its logo was created. Until the 1940s, Pepsi's red and white logo was too similar to its competitors. The company switched to its more familiar logo in 1945. The logo took the shape of a bottle cap. The blue, red, and white colors were chosen intentionally. In this way, they wanted to support the American Army. 15 years later, Cola was dropped from the logo. At the same time, Pepsi launched a campaign that revolutionized advertising. And it all started like this.
This is probably the worst soft drink advertisement of all time. They chose the wrong target audience. There are no young people here, all the elderly people are here. People with grey hair drinking Pepsi in a very elegant restaurant. Coca-Cola was significantly ahead. Therefore, Pepsi faced a difficult task: to change this contentless advertising to a more lively one.
That's how the idea for the Pepsi Generation ad campaign came about.
They came up with something ingenious. They created ads aimed at the generation of baby boomers born in the 40s and early 50s. They said Pepsi is a new generation drink. These ads were intended for young people.
Instead of elegance, it focused on youth, freedom, sports, an active lifestyle, and the joy of victory.
The whole idea of the Pepsi generation was as follows: you have a whole life ahead of you. If you like the people in these ads, if you feel that they are like you, then your destiny is to be a consumer of Pepsi. It's an ingenious concept to connect with consumers instead of just selling the drink on its own.
Almost all of Pepsi's advertising is driven by the desire to surpass Coca-Cola.
The message of Pepsi has a more specific target audience than Coca-Cola. In Coca-Cola, it's all about traditional feelings of freedom. At the same time, Pepsi offers something much more specific. You are the generation that wants to be free.
There were also some aggressive advertising campaigns. This is a test. Coke versus Pepsi.
The blind taste test happened in 1975 at US stores. Visitors were invited to try drinks from 2 glasses, in one cola, and in the other Pepsi. What they didn't tell the customers, of course.
Pepsi Challenge was a brilliant marketing move as it appealed to what should truly matter to customers: the taste of the drink. It was an aggressive approach and a great example of brand rivalry in marketing history.
The result of the challenge shook almost all of the US. The winner was Pepsi.
Coca-Cola could not believe the results. People wrote letters to the company saying things like, "I'd be less upset if you told me God doesn't exist," or, "if you burned the American flag on my lawn." It was that serious for Americans. It's unbelievable that the people of the United States have had this nervous breakdown for 3 months. Everyone just went crazy.
The Pepsi Challenge was successful, and for Coca-Cola it meant the onset of hard times. They weren't sure how to react, and when their strategy faltered, they wondered if they should stick with the old product or find a new approach. Should they introduce something new? The answer came 10 years later when they introduced New Coke.
They spent years changing the drink, but the new formula turned out to be a failure.
Pepsi used the image of a competitor in its advertising. They released posters for April Fool's Day with the slogan "We love Coca-Cola." They created a series of banners supporting Pepsi Max, labeling Coca-Cola as Zero. And in 2019, they tried to reconcile the founders of both brands. They chose a strategic location, Atlanta, the hometown of Coca-Cola's creator, John Pemberton.
Culturally, in Atlanta, Coca-Cola flows in people's blood. This is an emotional aspect.
It happened during the Super Bowl, long sponsored by Pepsi.
We hung banners that read, "Hey Atlanta, thanks for hosting us, we'll bring drinks." This generated millions of reactions in the media. People posted stories, tweeted, and wrote things like, "What the hell? I feel like I'm being overwhelmed."
In addition, they placed a statue of Caleb Bradham next to the existing pedestal of John Pemberton. Opposite is the Coca-Cola Museum. In this way, our founders raise glasses with their drinks. The installation did not stand for a long time. Coca-Cola decided that any truce has the ability to end, and removed the statue of Bradham.
Hey, Coca-Cola, you don't seem too happy to see us. Too bad. Our founders thought it was a good idea.
And now to Pepsi's cooperation with the US National Football League.
The National Football League welcomes you to the Pepsi Super Bowl 49-hour show.
The Super Bowl is the final game in professional American football. For Americans, it is an unofficial holiday and a reason to take a day off. The event is important as the Champions League final for Europe. It gathers millions of views, though it doesn't quite match the Champions League. In 2015, the 49th Super Bowl was watched by a record 114 million people. In the same year, the Champions League final garnered 380 million views. Hence the Pepsi prefix added to the name of every star performance at the Super Bowl on YouTube. If you're curious about the cost of advertising at such an event, in 2018 a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl cost $5.2 million. By 2019, prices increased by another $50,000.
I believe that whenever a soft drink company showcases an artist to a multimillion audience, whether in a national or international ad campaign, it's a great opportunity for the artist. To be successful, you have to fly on this media plane. Such companies provide a kind of fuel thanks to which this aircraft can fly.
This iconic commercial with Michael Jackson kicked off an era of active collaboration between Pepsi and pop stars. The musical track was a specially re-recorded version of the song Billie Jean. The King of Pop collaborated with the brand multiple times. During the commercial shoot, Jackson suffered burns from a firework, leading to his skin-lightening surgeries.
Pepsi continues to associate itself with the new generation, and in this case, also with music. It's a unique advertising style when you want to send a message to the youth. This ad is a Michael Jackson hit, but it's about art and its forms, signaling his direct endorsement of a brand.
Almost all of Hollywood was involved in Pepsi's advertising. Over the years, Tina Turner, Madonna, Cindy Crawford, Beyoncé, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Lionel Messi and David Beckham also joined. There were also some blatant advertising missteps. For example, this ad featuring Kendall Jenner. Jenner acted as a protester. It's about Black Lives Matter, a movement against violence towards black people, which became widespread after 2013 and gained momentum in 2020.
The question is whether Pepsi should be allowed to engage in such social movements. They present Pepsi as a solution, but the question is whether this generation wants to link activism with a global brand.
The answer is no. The ad was immediately accused of exploiting a social issue and superficially addressing an important topic. Its creators were called people living in a parallel reality.
The worst part of the Pepsi ad is when Kendall decides to protest racism by letting a black woman hold her wig.
The Pepsi ad with Kendall Jenner is a perfect example of what happens when there isn't a single black person in the room where decisions are made.
After numerous criticisms, Pepsi released an apology video, apologizing to both the audience and Kendall Jenner, who had been heavily criticized on social media by then.